right, so we'll go ahead and call to order meeting for Monday, August 14th at 10:02. Roll call, Jerry Stuckey, that's me, I'm here. Jenna, is she on or not? No, I don't see her. Okay. Kate is here. Eric.
Here.
Tom. Right now, and Lisa is
Not here.
Go ahead and move on to the approval of the agenda.
Second.
Then we'll move on to the approval of the minutes for our regular meeting of July 10th, 2023.
I'll move to approve those.
All in favor? Okay, do we have any public comments?
No.
Great, all right. Then move on to our items 5A, disc golf and walking range trail proposal.
Okay, let me get information on these fellers in back here. This is a new proposal from last month, so sorry I don't have the original, but hopefully it'll make sense to you. Brian, you just want me to jump in and cover that?
Yep, go ahead.
So this addendum was in response to kind of our field trip that we had, where we went and did some site visits of different properties that we were discussing as far as potential locations to be either activated for the first time or that were being underutilized and to increase amenities there for the community at regional attractions. Essentially, the update says we explored Friend Marsh and doing some things there in regards to walking trails and potentially like from Callie's idea of putting in a beginner disc golf course over there to kind of bring more attraction to life down there. We decided that maybe wasn't the best use of that land at present, and so that's falling off of the original proposal. We can consider that at another time as it needs to come up. Same thing for Northeast 7th. We looked at that as well, and we decided that we just put a hold on that as well and see if that land might need something else later. And then Fort Nugent Park, we had some agreement on needing to do something to redesign that disc golf course and trail network there to make it best for all the park users. I think on reflection and from the comments, I added some notes here about some of the concerns there, which we have trails that are potentially passing on to private property, the perceived notion of what might be a trail, what might be a fairway for a disc golf course. Also knowing that we have some modifications and adaptations coming to that land, and we don't necessarily have a full plan of what that will look like. Thinking about other amenities there, like increased parking, a new entrance, adding potentially pickleball and how that might reshape and redefine priorities and usable land space. And then, of course, what will eventually happen, or should a school get put there? I'm reflecting on that. You want to say something, Blaine? I see it.
No, the school district, they'll tell you a school will be police there. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
So it comes down to the win essentially on that. And so two considerations I think to make is one, we know something needs to be done, but I think it's when. And does that timing happen now or in concert with another, proposal, which I'll get to when we talk about Harbor Heights? Or do we wait until we have a master plan, a revised master plan for that park and then do it then? Then what does that look like as far as expense and who's going to be the agents in doing that? I spelled that out a little bit in the proposal without being totally redundant. But if we brought somebody out to design a disc golf course professionally, like we had in the last meeting, would we then do a professional redesign then? Or would the timing be wrong to do that, knowing that we don't know exactly what land would be available, and then we might be paying to do redrafts? Or is it something that we wait on and do later and hire at a separate fee with separate travel and separate design costs, which would just increase the expense? Or do we do what we've kind of been doing historically, but with a better focus of a redesign with Woodby Island Disc Golf Club and then the city park staff and, and now having Bob as an arborist and some other different things that give us some greater focus. And I think maybe even a better team and unified understanding of designing that park at a time when we have a better plan. Or we may find that, you know, it no longer becomes functional there either, but rather than get paid, you know, tied into a design cost right now, maybe that's not the best function. And maybe instead we highlight our focus at Harbor Heights so we can turn that into the best possible thing that it can be and make sure that we activate that land and get that going. And I think put something in there that actually matches, I think, the wonderful quality of the natural environment of that park, rather than maybe splitting our attention and splitting our resources and finding that one thing, though necessary, isn't yet ready to be done. It might be jumping the gun. So to that, that's kind of a bracket on Fort Nugent. Does that make sense as far as I'm communicating that? So then Harbor Heights was the one that after we kind of walked through the major trail there, everybody sort of agreed that that land lent itself to being sort of I call it like a natural playground, a trail network, disc golf, kind of seemed to be things that would fit into that much better than just dumping kind of our stabilized solids out there, you know, and actually putting that land in use and creating something in that space to, I think, help, again, mitigate safety issues that would be unwanted campers, which are only going to create more labor and more headaches for the staff. It activates that park in between some neighborhoods, I think, that could use a recreational outlet right and close. It also would allow us to have a pretty extensive trail network out there. I mean, a circle around it, even just a perimeter track is almost 1.5 miles. With some elevation change, obviously there would be other design influences on that, so it wouldn't simply be a loop around. That's boring. But in designing a disc golf course and designing a trail network at the same time, we're creating an opportunity to create some real diversity while maintaining safety and allowing, I think, the most amount of people to enjoy that space while maintaining the natural integrity and maintaining safety, and not having to increase the massive costs of altering the land from what it presently is in order to make it something that it's presently not.
I think the one thing we have to consider out of Fort Nugent that staff can help kind of come up with a plan probably on this is parking and access and that sort of thing, because that's kind of that property kryptonite, you know. We'll have to look into that and decide what we want to do there, because that might even be worth more than the course itself, you know. I mean, just getting access, proper access in there, clearing it enough to have a little parking lot somewhere.
You're talking about Harbor Heights or Fort Nugent?
Yeah, Harbor Heights. That's going to be the tough part of it, I think. So I keep that in mind too.
Well, I think as Blaine was suggesting, that kind of off that end of Elwha, putting something temporary in there, and I think even maybe we've talked about a little bit of opening some of that space around there, bordering the Elwha and the Parkwood Manor sort of thing for sort of some gathering spaces that won't take a lot of acreage away from the main park, but allow for
some access.
Yeah, and for people after they've gone for a nice hike up and down the 70 different feet of elevation and looked around, be able to have a picnic or enjoy some shade underneath a structure or something.
I am concerned with if we do have restrooms out there, which probably would be needed, you know, to put in some sort of facilities out there, that being that deep in the woods there, they're probably going to get hit a lot, vandalized a lot. So we'll have to kind of keep that in the back of our minds too as we move forward on that project.
Yeah.
Kind of a natural evolution here. The problem is we're kind of doing a pivoting because, I mean, it was purchased for a sports complex, and where are we going to put fields? And we kind of decided that the cost was too much prohibitive, and that's why we didn't even get the first phase in here. And I like the development idea here on it, and we spent already probably $100,000 on design on it already for the two fields, one entrance from Elwha and one from Gun Club Road. But if the cost is prohibitive, the cost is prohibitive. So this is kind of a good, it's going to force a kind of a change view. And it's great. I mean, if we own the property, let's utilize it, and we're not going to utilize it for what it is. But what do we do for the sports complex, and what's the options there and how we do it? And you and I and Brian have had some conversation. And when you bring up this to the council, they're going to say, well, it's in a sports complex. And they went through a whole bunch of training. They went through a whole design of it. I mean, it was $60 million was the build out, which is probably, might as well double it and say it's 120 million. So I don't know, just the costs go out of area there. But I mean, it is good reason to do it. And coming in on Elwha is probably the easiest. Gun Club will probably have more issues. If you started in Gun Club on back in there, that's if we were to continue with the sports complex. I mean, then it'd be a long time before we ever got to that part, because it would probably start on the south end and work its way north. That's what we do. But we haven't even decided that we're going to start that. But I mean, if you're putting in a golf course, then we're kind of admitting it's probably not going to be a sports complex. So I think, I think using the property, and you're right, if we get trails in there, we get people in there, then it'll help with what was you call undesirable campers. I like your term there, since we've already had we made that when we bought the property, we made that people previous owners to clean up some of the encampments that were in, so it's been a problematic issue. So
yeah, I think waving a white flag on this isn't even waving a white flag. It's rather just saying we're going to take the natural beauty that we have now, and then we're going to pivot to look to something that's more effectively already naturally inclined to be a sports complex. And I think maybe it allows city council to use their imagination to find a new spot. And knowing that life is like this, where we make a decision with one thing in mind, and time and wisdom and wallet help us make a better decision, and then we get to find the thing that we needed to have in the first place. And I'm confident that we can do that and then activate this land. But again, the undesirable camping, when I became the president of the Bay Island Disc Golf Club, one of my goals was to make sure that there were no campers in there, because when I took it over, there were needles in the playground. And the city folks, the city didn't have enough manpower to deal with all that. And we did it, myself and at one time Brad Von Hayden and a few other folks who were on, then we got them all. There's not a single camper in Portland Park, and there hasn't been for over a year. And we can do the same thing on that 76 acres pretty effective, because we'll always be on it. 365 days a year, there's somebody on the disc golf course. And that matters. It doesn't have the seasonality of sports fields, which,
I do think you brought up a valid thing too on the community getting something for their money out of that property too in this situation. And it could change in the long term, 10 years down the road. Maybe they put a ball field out there or two. Who knows what could happen.
We don't know.
Bicycle paths.
Right. Well, and it's like, the plan for 16th goes all the way through, and all that land is acquired. If we put a basic parking lot on the Elwha side, well, that's just going to get turned into a street. So we make the parking lot wide enough to already accommodate the street development. And then we've already done, one thing, if that never happens, well, okay, it's great. We got a great parking lot. And
get little pieces that help build the blocks and build it up.
Yeah. And we can do all kinds of stuff. So one of the suggestions that I have in this addendum on the second page was, in the original proposal, one of the things that we were trying to do was allow for multi-site or multi-course disc golf. This is me speaking just on the disc golf side, down on the walking trail side for a minute, in order to sort of enhance both the opportunity for low-cost recreational play, but also for competitive play. It's kind of something we talked about with all of our sports stuff, including pickleball, is how can we host competitions that bring revenue into the city, that sort of plant a flag and say, hey, we have these facilities. Not only do we have the facilities, but we're going to program them with these private groups to do multi-day kind of events that bring revenue into the city, that put events on the calendar that aren't, the stuff that's been expected, the youth sports and the race things and a lot of passive events, but now more active events that go on the calendar that are multi-generational and fairly low cost. And having multiple courses, or we had looked at multiple sites, being able to do that allows us to extend that economic impact. Typically in that disc golf world that allows for multi-day events, people aren't often interested in playing the same thing 3 days in a row. I mean, they will, make no mistake, but providing a resource like that, which again is low cost to install, allows a lot more people to come. And one of the things that we do is we typically host an event every month of some level, but we're capped on size and safety as we've gone over ad nauseum, and so I won't beat that dead horse. But getting more people out for our charity events, which often fill up. We do things for once a year for disabled American veterans. We do something for the Archer Beeman Foundation, which is a memorial for a young man who took his own life here. It's for suicide awareness, youth suicide awareness, and then a scholarship fund in his behalf. Doing things in the winter for the Help House to help them replenish their coffers after the holidays, things like that, where we can get more people out and extend not only the charitable focus, but also give people more of a diverse experience for enjoying this kind of low-cost recreation, and then also for those who play competitive, to provide them some extra outlets in order to do that. It also would allow us to qualify for any of those LTAC grants by doing that multi-day. We did do a beta this year of bringing back multi-day here, but we had to do it part in Anacortes and part at Deception Pass Golf Center. And so we had people that were staying places, but they were staying places like Anacortes and things like that. We couldn't get them all in because we couldn't centrally locate them here. However, when they were here, they all spent all their lunch money at Anacortes, and afterwards they spent their drink money at Flyers. And so there is economic impact that we'd like to extend that. To that end, I think thinking about potentially having it install and design 2 courses at the Harbor Heights location doesn't really impact the network of trails. And in fact, it allows us to open up more space without destroying the natural wooded context, which helps with controlling invasive species. Again, the unwanted campers, trash, which is just going to be a natural outcome. And that relieves some of the burden on the city park staff I got the remix. Which, I mean, they're already overburdened as it is, and so allowing us to get in there and do a lot of that trash cleanup and help control some of those invasive species. Obviously, we need to have a new or first-time agreement drawn up with the city as far as what that looks like, but having some of that partnership for that free labor, it also allows more sunlight to be brought in so we can have the trees that we want to grow, rather than just all the alders that are going to grow up and fall over and become a nuisance. And the blackberries, as great as they are, we can control them and keep them from overgrowing the trail, at least manicure them so not everybody gets mad if they get taken completely out. But the other invasive species that, these guys are always chasing their tails having to get to, and never enough time or manpower or woman power, as it were, to get to it. And then still building an extensive trail network out there. I think it solves a couple of things. It makes use of the land. It doesn't do any destructive, really, land shifting or land moving in order to do it. It's taking out a lot of the unwanted growth that's in there anyway, that has grown up since it was last cleared cut like 35 years ago. There's a lot of trees in there that are already ready to come down. Tally can probably testify to that better. I think some of you saw that, are dead standing trees that were out there.
One of my concerns for this project too going forward is this property is kind of not really a blank slate. There's stuff there now that we're going to have to deal with. So I love the idea of I personally love the idea of doing something out there, but we have to keep in mind that we're going to have to deal with that brush, or we're going to have to deal with it. It's something that's going to cost some money to grind that up or rip it out and haul it off, whichever it takes. So I just keep that in your mind. And disc golf does help out. We say clear this, they pile it up nice and neat for us. So maybe it's a combined effort between the groups, but it's not like down at the marsh, where it's pretty well. You can take the mower out there, mow it, you got it. You're gonna have some real work in there.
Well, and the good news about that is everything can be ground up on site and reused, and we can use it for erosion control. A lot of times you have older trees, the roots, the dirt around the roots begins to recede and get exposure. Well, we can use all that ground up stuff to put it back around there to maintain the healthy basis of all these trees that we want to maintain. We can take down some of those dead standing and alders, and you can grind up the blackberries and a whole bunch of other stuff and use it as surface cover. It helps with moisture control. It helps with all that stuff. It controls erosion. And frankly, it makes it look more park-like, which I think is the kind of beauty aesthetic that you want. Is mostly natural with some semi-manicured elements. It makes it accessible, makes it friendly, and then bringing natural light in through, the canopy of a lot of those dead standing trees.
So to really do these lanes, if you're wanting to put them in fairly quick and with a mechanical technique, you're looking at a forestry muncher and a skid steer. And that's the head for a forestry muncher is 100 grand by itself. You can rent them from places or hire contractors to come in and do that if we lay it out for a lot better deal. But keep in mind that that's something that we're going to probably be doing year after year to maintain those pathways in that forest too, because it's so thick.
Yeah, let's talk about that for just a second. So let's talk about what costs are not.
That's where I was headed next.
Yeah, go ahead.
You want me to do that? Yeah. So what costs are included in there are just the design fees and the actual physical equipment. Okay. Professional course design in disc golf isn't very expensive, but it still has cost. If you're looking at a golf course, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars. Heck, how much did we already spend on trying to have a park designed at Harbor Heights? Anyway, 100,000. And so what this is site visits. This guy again was a world champion disc golfer, is now retired and moved into doing this as what his career. Yeah, he spends his time going out surveying land on site, creating his own models with GPS whiskers and all that stuff, and then creating.
I think GPS will be key when you try to build that out there too.
So he'll put whiskers in the ground and get his own map and texture and contour and partner with satellite imagery. And then, on site going through, looking at it, shaping it, this guy is like equivalent to like the difference between a Jack Nicklaus, golf course and then some golf course on the side of the road when you're driving down the highway.
Has he done any other ones in the state?
Not in this state. It's one of the things he's trying to get one in all 50 states. On that initial proposal, I put some links to some different ones. Him and I have been trying to get something done for about 4 years since the Harbor Heights kind of came on, and also looking at Fort Nugent and then a couple other places in the region. But it's all of this stuff is top quality. Their draws, their attractions. It's basically places people want to play, and then they're set up in such a way that they're friendly for beginner levels all the way back. But so again, what's not included though is going to be all of that work that Callie was just talking about, the equipment and how are we going to create fairways and tree removal and all of that stuff. That's going to have some cost to it. Woodbine Island Disc Golf Club provides a lot of labor insofar as we can have an agreement that works for all parties involved, providing a lot of that maintenance. Tallie's point about needing to come in there with, and widen those fairways with some kind of munching machine. It's probably actually maybe going to have to happen twice, once at the initial and once a little later, but the foot traffic takes care of most of that. And then the club has always maintains the fairways out at Fort Nugent, trimming back especially the invasive species and trying to maintain it insofar as it works with, when Tally tells me to stop, we stop. And when he tells me it's okay to, go ahead and gives me the, the green light, then we go ahead and do it. But we maintain all those trails and can continue to do that after they're cut in.
One of the issues we have with it, which is great, is when they go in there and cut the brush down and pile it up, you start getting fire loading. Mm-hmm. So we have to be careful to either clean it up, chip it up, or do something with it and not let it get too big of a pile. We don't want with that many houses around and that dry kindling all it takes is a kid out there. And
you don't want any potholes. Yeah, we'll haul it out. So in the design, does that include surveying and like consideration of the existing lack of built environment, existing conditions?
Yeah.
Okay, we need to make the fairway this wide. This is what will be need to remove, grading, all the site prep is included in the design, or is it just a layout, and then we're going to have to go in and figure out how to make that layout work with the existing topography and trees and whatever else is in there?
My understanding it's yes and sort of. And by that I mean it's gonna have a site visit that takes in all that natural topography. Obviously, the scope of these projects typically don't require any extensive engineering as far as lands and soils go, because it's not moving the land enough to make that happen. We're also not dealing with waterways or, salmon habitats typically. So spotted owls, hopefully, things like that, right? So from my understanding, how this process works is essentially he creates the design in partnership with those that are involved, and then it's essentially handed over to those who will perform the work in order to do it, whether that's the local organization, as it's been in some places like a club, a private a property owner, or a municipality, who then performs that work. But the consideration is always given that it's actually feasible, and that it actually is real and tangible. It's why it's not done from an office somewhere. It's done with actual real site visits and real marking and to understand the actual texture. I mean, people can do a lot on CAD and Google Earth, but that's
So we'll have to
quality
website
design.
like one-on-one base
Yeah.
discussions. Are the fairways typically just like bare dirt paths? Are they usually seeded and have like just natural grass or turf or whatever? What's a typical fair or ideal fairway surface?
It depends on what you want it to look like. It looks one way. It looks how it looks depending on the natural environment. I would suggest in the Pacific Northwest, the best way to do it would make it look more natural is, have it be more like dirt paths with wood chips and things like that help manage the erosion and things like that. And then leaving a lot of along the sides, removing some of the brush in order to bring light in and things, but leaving some of those natural charms. I mean, we want to make it feel a lot like, I don't know if you've ever hiked around, Baker Lake and things like that, right? If you've gone anywhere into the foothills or into the mountains there in the Cascades, we'd like to kind of feel like that, while also recognizing that we're on Whidbey Island. We have a little bit different trees and environment than that, but we want it to feel natural. I don't know if we necessarily want to plant a whole bunch of like grass or things like that in there. One, for the maintenance costs, and two, I don't know if it feels like it goes along with the natural environment.
I'm just thinking about
But it could be done.
how do we keep it from just being sort of a muddy mess during a lot of the year, right? Like, do we do it soft trail like you? So you mentioned wood chips. You did wood chips, like that's gravel or if not turf, some other way just to keep it from being.
Fort Nugent, we've done a lot of recycling up there, which is a lot of manpower running the chipper as far as the brush, and that's where we get a lot of our wood chips for that operation up there.
And just recycle it, just chip out all the trees you take down, lay down.
Yeah, because there's a lot of stuff already down, so you can make a lot of it there. It's a lot of manpower to do all that. So
We could do that instead of like engineered with fiber, but it'll just biodegrade.
I think one of the things we have to remember is we're going to get a natural renewable source of wood chips from what's called wind. It's going to knock all that stuff down, right? And so we get a lot of these. I mean, every year, I don't know how many windfalls you and I both cut down to keep the trails clear for the neighbors out at, that have fallen across the paths. And that's where all that stuff has come. We joke at Fort Nugent, we have beaver dams out there because these huge piles that are in there that because the trails are so narrow, we can't really get the equipment right in there to chip them. The goal, I think, with this would be able to make sure that we have wider areas to bring in the city equipment then. And in those wider areas, start using like the crushed rock, the binder for, those trail bases, or a lot like what we have down at the marsh for the trail that goes through there. So you can drive on it for the higher traffic areas. Then the foot traffic areas, I think the idea is to keep them within the natural aesthetic of feeling like you're still in the forest and not so manicured out. I mean, one of the charms of disc golf is that it's not golf. Golf is, yeah, and it's pseudo nature.
So I asked not so much from a design conversation, just trying to get a feel for like additional costs. Like, are we going to need to prep the fairways with something afterwards? The cost of installing the fairways. We also have the installation of the cement pads. Right? That's not being too bad. If we do 36, doubles over. Sorry.
Yeah.
We can probably get that.
maintenance thing of even once you got the fairways in there, you're gonna have to mow around them probably once a year. With the way the canopy is in there, you're gonna get a lot of that blackberry trying to grow back. So we're gonna have to keep battling it.
We do about 4 times a year major stuff out at Fort Nugent. Blackberries, usually it's twice, and it's really only in that one spot.
Yeah.
I cut them to the ground. or close to the ground twice.
We're gonna find that Harbor Heights is a little sweeter soil up there, and they're gonna.
Yeah, Harbor Heights is gonna have, I mean, there's just more of it, but typically, you know, if we have a plan in place, which we don't really at Fort Nugent, we sort of do it all ad hoc, I think we'll be able to manage it a whole lot better. And I think if we come to an agreement too between the local volunteers and the city as far as what each of us are going to do and what the plan's gonna be to handle it, I think we're gonna find that after the first few years, that park is going to be as close to sort of self-managing as one could be for that.
Gets their foot in the door.
Any other costs you think associated with installation? Not part of this.
I mean, you're gonna need forms, right, for your concrete, so you're gonna have something for the concrete forms. You're gonna want base, so you're gonna wanna have some, you know, 5/8 minus binder to create your bases, and you're gonna wanna have something to compact that down, typically to make that last as long. And then for places where we're going to see low areas with moisture, we're gonna either need to bring in, you know, or we're just gonna need to press it down in such a way. And then I think again, using crushed rock like we've done on the trail down at Fred Marsh is going to make a really sustainable surface for a lot of those trouble areas. And then also being aware of, and it'll become very clear where we might need to put in drainage, you know, underneath the trail just to move moisture from one way to another. But the one rainy season and an adventure out there usually tells you pretty quick where that needs to take place. And that's not very difficult if we have to do it after the fact. I mean, it's a ditch witch and typically some corrugated, you know, 4-inch corrugated pipe and some drain rock, stuff that the club has done in different spots, and then, you know, the city crew has done in different spots in Fort Nugent Park. So there will be recurring costs. Like any trail network is always going to have costs. You're going to get erosion. We have rain.
Side note, I mean, we're in a pretty here going on here.
Go ahead.
My background, I'm a retired firefighter. And you're trying to put an integrated trail system in here with this golf courses on there. I'm trying to imagine myself still being on duty, and if I have a trail system out there with somebody running on a trail on 76 acres, someone has a medical out there. How am I supposed to get that person to immediate care on a small trail, or get a vehicle out there, or how am I supposed to extract that person to get them to immediate care?
Yeah.
So I mean that's my concern with that, because now you're gonna have people running out there. They're out in the middle of nowhere. You have somebody who's unattended who goes down and fires up, and you have to get them out of there. I mean, your trail system somehow has to be able to manage, be able to get work equipment. Us out there be doing maintenance, and plus being able, I mean, law enforcement, I know for a fact wants some type of system, something out there that they can drive through and kind of monitor that area. Let alone, you know, like right now, we have a wildland fire out there right now, which is some homeless guy right now. They light one off out there. You feel like that, just being able to get back there and manage all that.
Yeah.
So. I mean, I think that's a red flag I had.
Yeah, no, in our initial proposal, we suggested that we wanted to make the perimeter trail wide enough for some level of emergency vehicles to come in and hopefully have cut-throughs as well, you know, like you want to see in a park system, that would work with the way that, so the disc golf course and that trail and emergency, road system essentially would be designed in such a way that they'd be cooperative.
Yeah.
And that would allow us, there's going to be part where if somebody does collapse, there's probably going to be some parts where we're going to have to get on foot. But if we can get, you know, some of these trails wide enough in these different places, that we can be able to not only, you know, do emergency stuff, but also get equipment in there for when a big tree does go down and all of those things that would be an issue. You know, and should we have to remove, you know, some camp complex that gets built overnight, you know, all of those things.
Yeah.
That's definitely one of the major concerns that I have, because I don't like having, and I think everybody feels this way, having these unused and underutilized pieces of area that can allow for that unsafe behavior. And then if we are going to activate it, we take care of our people that are going to use it. So that was the plan I had. Obviously, you know, I'm an amateur at best, but I know that if we don't keep our people safe, then we sort of failed the mission, or at least have the best possibility. We won't be able to save everybody from every event, but if we have the best ability to lower response times, you know, we're doing the best by the people.
Yeah.
So-
Just curious. Design.
Yeah, let's segue that concern in with access. So we're looking at access to Elwha.
That was what Blaine and Durham suggested as far as being the easiest place of ingress.
And we would need a parking lot, trailhead, maybe with like an information sign, probably a portal on site there as well.
Can have a rule sign, no overnight camping, that sort of thing.
Yeah, you're talking a parking lot. So that's what I'm really into is the whole total cost. The city's had a kind of a history of going into projects not knowing the total cost, and so maintenance cost, and so I'm a stickler on that of those total costs. And even if a range is fine, I mean, sometimes you don't know, but I'd like to see a range of costs. So this is a scenario because you talked about it. I mean, potentially things could go real smoothly. Potentially things could be more expensive than what we have, and so kind of having a range there. Total cost.
Talk to our engineers
Yeah.
a little bit about,
So
see what they have to say about drainage and
Yeah.
that sort of thing for parking.
But for access road, I mean, certainly you can use Gun Club as an access road.
I would love to see us have a
Emergency road, I mean, emergency
right through
road.
the middle of it, like we kind of got started there. I'd like to clean that up so that if something did happen, you could at least drive a vehicle straight through, not be trying to turn it around in there. Yep.
But if we open that up permanently at Gun Club, it creates a whole, it's a gate right now, and so creates a whole different atmosphere.
Fence that eventually, that property lines.
That's what the neighbors to the east are going to want. There's another person building another house in there.
You only have access on one side.
There's a little 2.5 lot I think I spoke about. 4 of the 8 people that live in there called me up and asked about it. A lot of apprehensiveness with thus. I think this probably will not be near as intrusive as a sports complex, but any kind of development will affect them. So, and then I guess priorities. What do we focus on? I mean, it's a great idea. I love it. But we're going to talk about trying to do pickleball, and we need to emphasize there. We got to prepare for loss of soccer fields, and so where do we go there? And so how does this fit in? And then back to what I said earlier is where do we move and where do we focus on as alternatives if this doesn't become a sports complex?
And I think the focus I had here was, with this particular project was it affords us a couple of things that I think would be very helpful for our overall plan. Is it's sort of low-hanging fruit in the fact that there's nothing there. There hasn't been a really actually feasible proposal put yet for the use of that land. There's money in the budget existing already for improvements for that, area. Now that might only cover the parking lot. But there's money already there. Whereas in some of these other sites that we had, there was really no money for them yet. As far as I understood some of that. And then, further, we can help build, I think, by giving something back to our residents, that's, again, low cost and accessible and has a lower cost of installation. We can give them something back to begin to build positivity. I think one of the things I've talked about a little bit is the sort of general cynicism and negativity that we have in regards to parks, and I think just kind of some of the stuff in Oak Harbor in general. And so we can get that ball rolling. We can get this project, I think, going. We can move and get pickleball going. And now we've taken the 2 fastest growing sports in the country and handled both of those. We can look at where we're going to then turn our attention to where we're going to build the sports complex and find, are there strategic partners that can help along with that? Where can we go to take care of that? Because that needs to be an essential priority. And this adaptive playground idea. All of these things are sort of like landmark, put the flag in the ground. We're going to be about these top quality things. And we're going to put some real, we're going to be real stakeholders in doing something that changes the landscape and the dynamic of how people think about City of Oak Harbor and their parks, not just here, but also in the region. Because right now, that draw isn't necessarily there, but I think these 4 things will make that happen. And I think this and then pickleball are the easiest things to get going to really make a difference and shape or reshape or recast the vision and the sort of cultural ethos here around parks and the excitement about it. And then we can get, I think we can get more buy-in from the community to do more things, because they'll see that we are getting stuff done, and that the city is making good on their promises, that we are putting an exciting, useful on budget features. And I think that's exciting for everybody, and hopefully be able to be part of staff. And I don't want to speak for you, but hopefully being part of some new interesting projects would be maybe, I don't know, out of the rut of the normal flow of work, and be exciting to be part of something new. I mean, I certainly, I've tried to be sensitive to the fact that I know y'all are overwhelmed with your workload as it is, but hopefully that, getting to use your guys' skills and talents to shape something new in addition to maintaining the existing might be exciting as well.
Carrie, I'm gonna
Yeah,
you guys
sorry.
along a little
Yeah.
bit. So what staff's gonna look for? So I want to hear some discussion from you guys on proposals. Do you like the idea of do you like the idea at all? If you like the idea, between doing like one course versus two courses. Now this is just for design and the course direct materials, the baskets. Depending on what direction you go, if like you say, you know what, let's table this or whatever, fine. If you guys say, you know what, yeah, we love this, let's put something, let's look at putting something in there because really it's just the design part. We'd like to see maybe a 2-course there. Then we can go forward and have a discussion with Blaine on funding that. It looks like the club is looking at raising a minimum of 10,000 to match with that.
That's a lot. Yeah.
And then we can work on costs on the rest of the installation stuff. So we have a total understanding where that's going to be. So that's fencing off neighbors, that's access to the parking lot, portalet, access road, the clearing of the fairways, the installation of the baskets themselves, and the tee boxes.
Yeah.
You call them tee boxes?
Yeah. Tee boxes, tee pads.
And the cementing of the boxes. I think that incorporates all the additional costs. So why don't you guys have some discussion and
Yeah.
what's that?
That was really well done. All that stuff that you listed, like right there.
We've been thinking about that.
Why don't you guys have some discussion and I guess staff would look for a motion, some recommendation for direction.
I like the idea of focusing on Harbor Heights. Fort Union Park is still kind of a question mark. I think focusing on Harbor Heights is probably the best use of time, energy, and funds. 1 versus 2 courses in Harbor Heights. I don't know what is everybody's thoughts on.
I like the idea too, for a lot of the reasons that you discussed in terms of, especially people coming in to have like a tournament or something like that. I also think that while it looks like, it's kind of double the cost for design, I don't think it's double the cost for everything else.
Right.
So I think we would regret later we didn't do
Yeah.
too.
That's kind of how I was thinking too, especially like you say for tournaments and things like that.
The other thing you can remember too is with Fort Nugent, you're not losing that course still, even at the
Exactly.
level it's at today.
Yeah.
We just keep it going the way where it's at. We still have that course out there.
I think one of the biggest public benefits is going to be the walking trails,
Mm-hmm.
and we really haven't discussed that much. Is that something, I know there's some integrated design from the presentation you gave last month. And does that ratchet up these numbers you have on here? I just think that's a big public selling point, and a big public benefit is if we're looking at progression of the project, that has to be incorporated up front, from what I understand, to do it safely. Not that it requires the level of design that this does, but that the intersections,
Yeah.
The safety feature of that. I think there'd be an overwhelming positive response from walkers, small walkers to, and really give a positive image to what we're be.
This design fee includes the trail network design. So yeah, it would cover both of those. And essentially he's doing that for free, building the trail network along with who's done several other parks, from Alaska to Maine to, Kansas to Leaf Bay, in order to design them all at once. So we get along with it, and then we can bring all those concerns that we've already expressed about like access roads for safety and emergency. And all of that will become evident too, walking with the city park staff and then seeing the points of ingress and, talking with Blaine and all those things when he comes out for his visitor visits in order to do this work.
You really get 2 for 1, it sounds like.
Yeah.
You get one
Glad you
kind
brought
of
that
and
up.
disc golf, so
Yeah, that was a really good
that's a
point.
plus, I think.
Yeah, and again, Tom's right, because if this isn't multi-use, then I don't want to do it. If this is just like a disc golf, like, no, that's not okay. Like, this needs to be something that, the main source of activity we see when we walk around are runners, dog walkers, and walkers, and folks pushing strollers, right? And things like that. So let's give them a natural playground. And these roads that we use for emergency vehicles are perfect for, things like strollers and for runners and people that maybe aren't comfortable with the trail running environment, but want to run them in the woods and not on the side of a road.
Well, I anticipate the public walking trails, if you want to call them that, wouldn't be over-designed. I mean, they would be openings that people would wear down themselves through use, like a lot of where the nature trails are, without having to overdo the surface preparation.
Yeah, a lot like how Deception passes for Anacortes Forest Community Lands, right? You'll have like a main road with a gate that opens up, and then you'll have trail that, cut throughs and things like that that would go off of them that might be more single track. But we still have some of those wider areas for maintenance vehicles, for emergency vehicles, emergencies could be tended to. I mean, that's at least how I envision it, and I think how Eric, the designer, envisions it too, because it makes the most sense of a big space to do it in that way.
That's another good reason for doing 2 now, because then it really can get incorporated without having to rethink it later now, once the walking trails are already established.
I guess the other question would be, does it all have to come up at one time? That would certainly impact how we approach this. Or do we just want to get one or the other for the right mix to get it opened up as a park and to get the public?
You could go forward with the design and the purchase of the equipment. As far as installation, you can do that all in one shot. We can phase that. We have flexibility in how to put in, how much we want to spend at the time.
And is there really money available? I know you're saying there's money available for the original conversion to sports fields. Is that money really available for this kind of thing, or the reappropriation?
We have REIT, which is retail exercise tax that has to be done for capital. We have it earmarked in there, but it's earmarked for soccer fields, so we can redo it. And we have some money in Windjammer Park, this REIT funding, that we're probably not going to spend as near as much as what's going to be done there. So that's what I was trying to focus on, the priority issue, kind of knowing the timing, priority of how we roll things out. I mean, certainly we could direct some of that funds for adaptable playgrounds, and so we're talking about redirecting some of those funds for pickleball. So kind of understanding that whole picture, because that's the question the council's going to ask is, where's the whole picture? Where's the priority? Where does it fit in? So, I mean, I love the idea, soccer fields moving forward, but how do I kind of deal with that? And I'm going to defer to Brian for what priorities, where does it fit in the priority, and what's the timeline? How do we kind of absorb all these things? Because sometimes we've had a habit of overextending and then under delivering in the city, and so I'm trying to be realistic here, and certainly not saying no, but I mean, how does it fit into the timeline? Where do we go from there?
Because of those refunds, we had something like $360,000 in this year for those sports complex improvements at Harbor Heights. And then we had some escalating as the years go forward. Well, we won't have those escalating costs necessarily at Harbor Heights once this is done, where those can be reallocated to a lot of these other. If we can get this one reallocated, right, then we can reallocate some of those other ones in other directions to these other things that we want to do, like pickleball and the adaptive playground. And then the other priorities, I think, as well, because we won't have to continue that massive construction project that we thought we were going to do for the sports complexes, which will have, those escalating costs. Am I right in understanding that?
Yeah, but just keep in mind the sports complex, whether we do it there or somewhere else.
Well,
Yeah.
It has to be done somewhere else. I mean, I think that's always the thing. We got to find a better somewhere else.
Oh,
Wherever it is, it's probably not gonna be at the cost of clearing that whole property.
yeah, but it may be towards purchasing additional property.
Yeah,
The city paid 1.1 million for Harbor Heights Sports Complex area property, and so we did it at a fund balance. So we were fortunate to have the funds, but I don't know that we necessarily will have in the future. So that's why I'm trying to figure out these things, how it kind of fits in. And I'll defer. Brian's trying to get a plan together. The whole plan is kind of where we do it in the priority. We kind of look at our funding and we kind of figure it out. And I think we could make it work. It's just a matter of time.
It certainly falls into, what we already started working on. Priorities and facilities and all the other things that we put on our eventual agenda. And so that seems like a good way to do it to me, bring it back to committee type.
And again, that's kind of why I brought this up as low-hanging fruit for unactivated land, to see what it would look like to put something into that plan to give us a option for a fleshed out plan for a jump start, and knowing that property has many community questions about that, about trying to answer, stuff that wasn't already in competition for activation. It would be a good way to start going there. And then to answer your question as far as staging, sometimes the cost of equipment is getting it there. And so a lot of times once you have the equipment on site, operating it to get what you want done can be more cost effective than multi-station. That's not to say you can't do it the other way, but I know in my construction experience, getting the equipment on site and the operators there who are going to be able to do it, and then doing it, it's better to bite that bullet of a larger check than to try to write two big checks, that are spread out that equal or greater. But that's how I spend my own money, and this is certainly taxpayer money, and I want to guard it with an even greater respect than I do my own.
But it seems like we can kind of say that at this point, that we agree on the design of the construction of 2 courses and walking paths. If we agree on that much,
Yeah.
pretty good start. It's just a matter of phasing and design,
Timing.
or designing maybe first.
Yeah.
Taking to committee level the details.
That makes sense. Getting the design, then we don't know. We experience the design and get conditions. and all
Because
of
that would address all 3 things we're talking about. Of course, is that correct?
So does anyone want to make a motion then for recommendation?
How would that be worded? Would it be a matter of allocating funds for design? Is that what the?
Yeah, I mean, your motion could, if this is something that you would recommend council goes forward with, and you'd say something like, make motion to recommend council reappropriate refunding, and acceptance of this proposal for design.
So
2 courses.
So, yeah, you want to clear on the approach. Yeah.
Oh,
Two
with
different
proposals?
proposals
Okay.
here, so.
So I move that we recommend to council that they
Allocate funding for 2 courses,
And walking trails.
And walking trail number.
including walking trails.
That. All right, ready to move on? Legal plans review, Brian Jones has sent an email. Information. Yeah,
Yeah, that's all right. I'll just, and I know that we're not quite there yet with their set of engineered plans. They're still working on how to make it structurally sound for wind load. I don't know if the size is going to reduce or not, but we do need to have some public comment around it. I don't, everyone I've talked to, when we get on the subject of what the size of it is, it's not what was there before, right? This is substantially larger. If you think about like the angel statue and the stuff around that, this is literally twice the size.
Right.
Oh, really?
Which is twice the size of a flagpole. No, that's what the angel is pretty much.
72, is that what?
83 or 82, I think.
Yeah, I
But,
wonder that. myself.
I can't,
Council,
I already put you.
It was something for option A. There was two different options, and they didn't know the answer because they didn't know the for sure wind load on it or how that was going to play out. So the engineers hadn't, what I'd seen, come up with a solid answer. They had guesstimations on where it was going to be. Right.
I feel like that's,
I'm glad to see them doing some work on the wind, paying attention to that down here. That's going to be really important and key.
yeah. Yeah, I feel like that might be excessive.
so council did approve the agreement with the Rotary Club. And keep in mind, we're still at the very, very beginning of this whole process for this project. But we just wanted to go over kind of what was in that agreement.
When you're finding that, can I comment on it? Yeah. I like the vision. I like that they're trying to do something that we haven't, a group that's trying to cast a vision for like something that they feel is important to the city, like a felt need and a response to what we actually had in hard survey data. My concerns are still location and the level of the ground there. I would hope that if we do approve it on that site before even the rest of the Windjammer maybe could be raised up to a better level to handle king tides and things like that, that they would require some sort of footing to bring it up to what that level should be. That way we could come in around there. That's a concern to me. Also, yeah, the size has been met with some shock and some nervous laughter from some people in the community that I've spoke to. I have my concerns about a windmill not being built by people who build windmills. Not that P&L does bad construction, there's not windmill builders. That said, I think also if we were going to build a windmill that big, it'd be nice if it actually moved. But I wonder about the maintenance. I wonder about the cost of that, and I wonder about that standing alone down there looking out of place, especially given the height that we have of even the commercial or light commercial buildings that we have here. I mean, it's taller than all of those.
Mhm.
The only building that might be, is there even a building that's 80 feet tall? I don't think so. I think the tallest building that we have is probably like 45 feet. And that's not to say that we shouldn't do it. It's just to say these are my concerns.
The building's about 50 itself.
Yeah.
The question is, what is the capacity that, like, if someone's gonna rent it out, how many people?
He said that, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
30
mention
or
that.
40
It
on,
wasn't
it's
really
two level,
huge.
it's two levels.
Yeah, it was like 15 and 16.
What's driving the height, what's driving the size is to trying to use it as a kitchen area
That's my
with
question.
restrooms and everything. That's kind of, whereas the smaller one, the original one, really didn't have as a kind of a snack bar.
I guess my
So
question is, the community wanted a windmill back, but did they want a windmill for that purpose? I mean, it doesn't, I haven't heard anyone say, I want a windmill that I can rent out for events with 16 people. You know, I just don't see that being
With the like ones.
right.
well, their
It
reason,
seems like their size is based on this ability to rent it out for this
yes.
relatively small number of people, and how many events are gonna be,
16.
yeah.
Well, it'll be open years around. I mean, their idea is that by having it renting out, then it creates revenue for maintenance of the facility.
Right, I just don't know what the demand is for that.
I don't think, could be wrong. I don't think you're saying that we'd rent it out so you'd have functions that can only be held within this facility, that would be a base, a kitchen,
Yeah.
Right,
a restroom, and spread out to the outside picnic areas and games, whatever else is happening.
But does it still need to be that size for that purpose, then, is my question.
And this needs to have a better understanding of the footprint. So this is the total footprint with a I don't know if it's pavers or whatever around, and then the black octagon there is the windmill. So here's the pavilion here. So you kind of give a better idea of the scope of it. This shows it oriented kind of east. From what I understand, it's going to be oriented towards the city.
The blaze when it comes to
Yeah.
city.
Well, is it designed to be functional,
No.
these blades moving?
No, they'll be static.
And you're saying the height is with the extended blade?
Yeah.
Well, they cut off some of the height, but they're not gonna have it go straight up.
Yeah, they'll have it oriented like this.
Gotcha.
So I think with the blade straight up, it's 83. So it should be
Yeah.
a little less than that.
Comes down about 10 feet, I think, by oriented that way.
What are the logistical concerns as far as creating that as a source of revenue for the city, not from rentals, but from selling stuff to park goers, concessions and otherwise? I mean, people are getting roasted out there on the plaza watching their kids run in the splash park. And we also have some of the water costs simply by selling things from it. I know way back when I was a kid, they used the thing as a lifeguard station and they sold stuff.
Still have
You
the
know.
refrigerator out of the
Yeah,
old one.
you know, and yeah, and out sports uniforms and stuff. And there's a lot of things that window was used for, but would that be a better use to recoup some of the cost for
Put a
operation by
concession
staffing
area.
and concession in there? I think it's
It's
good.
Yeah.
Possible.
The amount of money you bring in is going to be very minimal.
And it doesn't have
Whether
to be
you-
that big.
whether it's concessions or you name it, or even rentals for that matter, it's going to be nominal.
Yeah.
So it really is a matter of what do we want this to be? What does the city want it to be? I think we're all on board with the fact that we should have. I mean,
I'm not.
Well, I think that
I don't think it's, it's not up to me. I mean, it's up to the people, but my personal opinion is Windjammer Park is being developed as a by the sea Windjammer, still pirates, not pirates, but say, not,
Yeah,
Not
not
Dutch.
nautical.
and I don't really, I personally, feel like I guess that's related to heritage of the initial beginnings of the city of Oak Harbor, the people that came to Oak Harbor. But when I think about that, I think if you're gonna do that, why is it not like a Solvang where the whole California, where the whole city is that theme, or Winthrop where it's all Western, or why do we just plant like a windmill in this park that's otherwise a by the water? That's just my opinion.
I think it's a part
It's
of
a
it.
valid question.
I think a big part of it though is the city put out a survey and overwhelmingly people want this windmill back. You gotta deliver on that after the whole angel statue debacle with the survey and them not following.
I hear that, and at the same time, my understanding is it wasn't a controlled survey, so multiple, the same people could have responded multiple times. So I'm not disclaiming that the city wanted. I'm just giving my personal opinion. So I'm not. I mean, if
I'm
that's
just
what the city wants, that's what we should have.
From like a city council perspective, that's what I think is a big deal to them to
Sure.
deliver on what the feedback that they asked for and received was this time versus last time.
I hear what you're saying though, and I know I've heard that comment with some other commissions also, in that the survey was done right about the time that the angel statue was being discussed, and a lot of people were concerned, oh, we're going to put this angel statue in Windjammer Park,
Mhm.
and so there's this push of no, we don't want the angel statue there, we want a windmill put that instead, and so I think there was a lot more of that push for the windmill at the time because of all that conversation back and forth.
They thought it was in competition.
Right.
Yeah.
We have a windmill at Holland Gardens.
Yeah.
It's
Sort of. Ish.
For there.
Maybe 30 foot tall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
30 feet.
um,
We could put it on a trailer and bring it down.
It would fall apart before you got it off the ground.
Hey,
so let me go over a couple
Easier
things
than I thought.
of note from this agreement that the council signed off on. So this was, I mean, the project was presented last year, September 28th, 2022, by Brian Jones of the Rotary Club. So some of the city's obligations include ongoing operation and maintenance. So the city will accept ownership of the windmill. Any ongoing costs for items such as facility rental management, janitorial, repainting, repairs, cleaning of the structure. It's anticipated that a portion of that would be offset by some rental fees. We're still working on what those preliminary estimates for maintenance on an annual basis would be. We'll have a better understanding of that once we get final construction plans. A lot of this is still conceptual. I don't even know if it'll look exactly like that. I've been told by Brian Jones it's not going to look like that, but I mean, it'll be windmill shaped.
So Brian, the city has already approved the windmill, right?
They've approved the location and the agreement. As far as I don't know, I imagine it'll come back to council once they have construction drawings, like an actual engineered plan. With finalize, okay, this is what footprint will be, this is what the cost will be. They're still working on costs and things like that.
I really want to hear from Brian face to face. Like, I really think that'd be so important because I have some of these reservations that Kay has. I have thoughts that maybe fit better as an art piece than what is a big structure. But I'd like to really hear from the people that were passionate about it and sort of cast this vision, because I feel like I'm trying to interpret that and I don't think that I can do that justice very well. And I don't know if I can make a good decision or even any recommendation without hearing that and feeling and experiencing the passion behind it.
That's pretty much what we said last meeting.
Yeah, and we'll get him here. We reached out to him after the last meeting, and I think it got lost in his calendar. He ended up having to go to Seattle today for work, so wasn't able to attend. But he will come to.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
Was this a Rotary Club initiative, or was this?
Yeah.
Was this a response to a city request?
This was a Rotary Club initiative, from what I understand.
Yeah, I don't know if it's.
It's not a city
Like that.
project.
Pretty much. So they weren't responding anyway. They were really taking.
The community
They
was,
responded to the community.
yeah, the community was pretty outspoken about wanting a windmill back. The city didn't do anything, so the Rotary Club kind of stepped in and said, hey, we want to take this on.
I've lived here all my life, over 50 years. That windmill was a pretty iconic piece down there. I mean, we grew up with it. That windmill was down there was a pretty significant piece of structure down there. And when they took it down, it didn't come down lightly. It pissed off a lot of people. So, and they wanted it back.
Do you think they wanted that back, or I mean, do you think that this is what you would want, or would you?
I don't know if they were looking for the monstrosity,
Right.
but I think at this point in time, they'll take anything they can get right now. Because it was, I mean, it's, you're back again, it's part of the heritage. People grew up there, it's from a Dutch town where we grew up with it. But that was definitely a pretty significant piece of, when we went down there swimming in that lagoon in the 70s when they put it in.
Yeah.
That windmill was there, so, yeah, I mean, I just think from people who've been here for any time, the length of time, I mean, they would like to see that.
So maintenance for that, like the old one, was minimal.
Well, I think that's what Terry is saying too, is,
Yeah.
and which I also agree with this.
But
If we were running that, what?
But you're right,
I don't know what was
they
there.
sold ice cream, candies, they did rentals out of there for like swimmy stuff down.
Yeah,
They
they had the,
Yeah, lifeguard station.
they had a
they
youth
had the
program.
big pools down there.
They had like a youth program, a high school program. They had
Paddle boats.
paddle boats down there, and they had lifeguards for all high school kids and stuff. It was a pretty cool program. It was run by a guy named John Pellet at the time. He was a teacher, and he ran like 40, 50 kids. And they did all kinds of cool stuff during the summer event stuff. So it was like the rec portion of it.
The feedback that I consistently see is basically the idea of that's what people want back. And I'm a little concerned with this being this massive structure. The cost is going to be way higher. I would imagine time is, like, why not just give
what people are asking for rather than this cartoonishly large rental space that nobody was asking for. They just want the windmill.
I think we too need to remember to Kate's point, you can actually incorporate a windmill into a waterfront skate. I mean, take a look at the Netherlands. Just do a Google search. Like you can put these in and still have some of this feel, but it has to be done carefully and thoughtfully. And if we're going to do it, I think we should make sure that we do it in that way, that we do pay homage to the nostalgia and history that a lot of us had when we were kids running around here, but also make sure that it does tie in with what we've done. But I think also offset the sewage treatment plant in some ways while we have that sort of newer modern facility, and then do have something that calls back in a way without, while not being a relic. Does that make sense? Like it holds that tension between the two times, and community board was something that they want, while also calling back to that history and then tying it and blending it. And I think that can be done. It's just going to take time.
What's interesting is Brian Jones is very open to what the aesthetic of it looks like, and he wants to get some feedback from you guys. So it could match the clean water facility and the pavilion with like the dark metal and wood look, or it could look more traditional, kind of like the blue and white, like you see, up at the restaurant there. They're pretty open to it. So once they, I think, have some draft, and I'll probably wait. I don't know if they'll be next meeting or not, but I think maybe at this point, we'll wait until they have the drafts drawings, and then we'll have them come and you guys can get feedback and we can tweak and we can talk aesthetics and all that kind of stuff. A couple other things to make note of: the city will contribute $62,500, $49,500 to the Road Club for the project, $7,000 for the permit fees, and then $6,000 for the water and wastewater connections. And then again, any ongoing costs we'll have to consider that in the budget process for future budget amendments. What for? But like I said, we'll have a better idea depending on what they end up actually building is going to take. How much maintenance that's going to be. So that's kind of all I have. Just kind of continuing the discussion, and we'll probably, I don't know if we'll have this continuing on a monthly basis. I'll reach back out again to Brian Jones and see if he will come to the next meeting, or if we want to wait until they have some new design information to actually share with you guys. But yeah, as we go along, you'll just be more and more involved with it. Like I said, right now it's still, if you look at the timeline, this is where we are. Okay, it's right here, right? So there's a lot that still needs to be done, including the fundraising to make this happen.
On this side note, but sort of adjacent to this, the Holland Gardens windmill, is it possible that we take that little part there and sort of restore it to its former glory as a Dutch heritage kind of thing? The gardens that were there, way back when, and things were pretty neat. It was a pretty nice space. And I know there was, neglect for a long time, but it would be nice to see that windmill brought back. I mean, because it's been vandalized, it's deteriorating. Some of the shapes on the outside are rotten. There's holes. I mean, I'm sure it's more of a home for rodents than it is for heritage right now. And all that happens on that little pitch of grass out there is like the smallest kids have soccer practice, and halfway up some of those little hills and knolls that used to make up the flower beds. It might be a nice bone to throw if we're going to do something modern, but also to create something too that says, hey, we're going to carve out this other thing that holds all that historical imagery in one spot and restoring it back to what it was. Because I think you all remember when it was an actual live
It was a
garden.
destination.
It was beautiful.
And it was all tulips.
Yeah.
The ladies that took care of it.
The garden club took care of it.
I mean,
That's
people
kind
come from
of
everywhere. to see the place.
that's kind of the issue with that whole thing, is the garden club is at what state they're at right now.
Yeah.
Because that's undertaking.
I certainly don't want to get too far into the woods on that. I just thought that
I had that same thought
Again.
though.
underutilized and sort of historical.
We did a good walkthrough on Friday and needs some love. It needs to be just for the winter time. It needs to be some things need to be done.
When does the comment period come in on all of these projects? This one would require a public comment period for the windmill.
Yeah, so is the Angel too. They require a conditional use for the height in both of those projects. And so I think they're doing the one right now for the Angel and the public hearing coming up on this one.
Yeah.
But at some point in this process, before the construction starts, it'll, this one with the height will have to come to the hearing examiner. And the approval is subject to all the permits and the conditional use, so.
Because it's not a city project, yeah, it really is through the permitting process that the public would have a comment period.
But it'll have a hearing examiner, so it's possible that the residents come out against it and they object to it, and the hearing examiner looks at it and thinks there's some validity, and then it doesn't get approved. And they gotta come back and look at it.
Yeah, I guess
But it,
that was kind of my question, is how far down the road do you go before?
they're taking public comment now, but you know, the whole process, sometimes you do the public comment and then people, once they start discussing it, once it's built, then all of a sudden the comments up. You try to do your best to do that. We just did a fire station and we had to do a conditional use on that, and we were just kind of joking around on that. So and we did a lot of outreach, and the windmills had a lot of outreach too. So if people, this thing didn't come up, like it's been talked about for 2 or 3 years, with this plans, and multiple times in the paper, multiple times in the council. So
And the Windjammer survey, you know, that's kind of a public comment period.
Yeah, you got that on record.
yeah,
as well.
yeah. So we've had a lot of effort in getting comment on it, and the council's very supportive of it, and supportive of it in his plans. And they've heard Brian Jones probably at least 3, maybe 4 times over the last 2 years, and talking about this. So
This is curious.
I'm curious why they didn't want to just bring back what was there. Why that just, do you have any idea why they didn't?
he answers that question, and if you listen to the council comments, I think all 3 times when he did presentations on the council, I mean, I think he wants a bigger, better. That's what he talks about, and he answers it. And I can't paraphrase him very well, so I'm not going to try. But if he's here, yeah, he'll do it. And if you look at some of the recordings, the council recording, he answers that question.
I think you'll find out once you look into the codes of it too, that it requires a little different building than what we had down there if you're going to do it again, just for code reasons.
So just to let everybody know, the comment period for the Angel ended for Flintstone Park for the hearing examiner.
All right.
Thanks.
Any other discussion for the windmill? Okay, let's move on to pickleball.
Okay, so I put together a draft RFP for the design of the pickleball courts. I'm going to send this out to the board, and would just ask for your, and I think we can, no, we can't do this. We'll send it out as a copy, and then if you have any comments or suggestions for the change, send those to me. But a couple of key things with the scope I just wanted to go over with you guys. So really just sort of the first couple pages are what I want you to look at, as well as the very end of it, which is going to be the scope of work. Everything in the middle, you don't have to worry about too much. That's most of our legal, regular boilerplate contractor information. So overview, we'll solicit proposals from contractors for, and this is kind of the first topic, is the number of courts. So we talked about a complex with enough courts to do regional tournaments and make it a tourism draw. 8 courts was talked about. I know 12 courts was talked about at one point. We start smaller with just 4 courts. Love to get your kind of final, what would you like to see in this?
Here's my, 8 courts. And originally I was thinking, based on current usage, probably couldn't justify 8 courts. But the sport is growing. You saw the graph I set down. I mean, it's crazy how fast that's growing. But the other thing is, I know the city wants to get into this and talk about getting into lessons and clinics and youth programs and all that kind of stuff. And I think 8 courts would be, not to mention that it's going to be in a more visible location. So the public's going to be more aware of it and they're going to come out just because it's there and they can see it. So I think for all those reasons, I think 8 courts is the right number. That's just personal opinion. And I do see, because I play in the outdoor courts here once in a while, more and more there are first-time users coming, first-time players coming out more and more. And so I think that definitely is going to grow. So I think public usage is going to grow a lot. And then I'm sure to get a big splash when you open up, and that'll create more enthusiasm in play. But to me, more than that, really is the mix of organized activity and open play. And I think you need 8 courts to accommodate. So that's my first.
Yeah, I don't think you want to do anything smaller than 8 courts.
I don't know what that plot will handle either.
Oh, it's plenty big for it.
I think 12 would be a good
I think you gotta be
base
careful.
threshold.
The parking facilities, if you have other events out there, gotta keep that in consideration too.
What's the location?
At Fort Nugent Park, and we're looking at that northeastern corner, which will be by what will probably end up being the new entrance to the park once we have to reconfigure it for the school district. We had one of our staff here that went out to those courts at the college.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that a little bit? What did you see? What did you like? What did you not like?
It was pretty cool. It's all covered, you know. There was probably, I'm trying to remember now.
22 courts.
I want to say, 22 to 24 courts probably. Yeah,
I think it's, go ahead.
it was very nice, but obviously somebody donated a lot of money.
Yeah.
So it was packed while we were there. Many people. During a lot of parking, like I say. That many courts.
Yeah, that definitely was the Cadillac of facilities.
Oh, yeah.
There are a number of people really that football players here, they go over there to play recreational. Just in tournaments.
And that's, and that's what we're trying to do here is put it in to both as a first additional location. We probably need a few of these for residents, but also have a site that would allow competitive play and bring people off island to there as well. Okay. Any other comments as far as size?
Can I explain my logic behind
Yeah,
12?
go ahead.
I think if you're thinking about 12, you're thinking if you're playing doubles, that's 48 people. That's less than 50 people with those waiting. If you're running an event, and that doesn't even count if you're going to have singles going on at the same time, 50 isn't a lot of court space for an event like that. Also, if you're running a clinic for a sport that's growing and is, again, ease of access and relatively low cost, you get 50 kids and or adults or families out there. And that's just to have no weight. It's just a concern that I have. It's not necessary. I just like having space rather than having to go back and add on afterwards. But that said, we have constraints of budget, we have constraints of all of these things, and those things are always going to take the lead. But if I was casting vision, I would be casting vision for 12 for those reasons of just being able to have capacity to have the most. And as a tournament director for a lot of different sports that I've done, being able to get a lot of people through at a time really helps for the flow of those events and creates the experience that people come back to. And so being able to get 48 people in and off the course and be able to play through a round robin bracket, that takes a lot of time. And being able to have more people on the courts really helps. Having people having to wait a lot of times, especially as maybe they get a little older, and even at my age, being sitting around after you've gotten going and waiting 2 hours for your next go, sometimes isn't the most fun in those tournaments, and you get negative feedback on those types of events. That's my concerns there.
And another thing I think you need to consider is if you're going to have organized events, tournaments, for example, or even clinic tournaments, I'd be very hesitant to schedule a whole facility public screen if they can't go out and use their courts for open play. So if you choke that off, it's not a good thing. So you can always leave at least a couple of courts.
Large enough to always have open play
Yes.
along with whatever programming. we might
Yeah.
do.
Regardless of the program.
And there'll always be those secondary courts over Rotary, hopefully, but I think those are the opportunities though to get people to belong to a club and organization, and it gets back to the community. So yeah, like you say, you got to make capacity for that, but then also understanding that there are privileges and perks to being part of a membership that is paid to rent out the facility from the city, and the city gets money back for it.
It's kind of nice to have courts at Rotary. Even with new courts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am in favor of 12 as well. I mean, most of the same reasons, and also just because I know it's growing so fast, and also, and I think sort of the economy of scale. I mean, if the space is there, in terms of the expense of making a pickleball court, I don't know that it's going to be a whole lot more to do 12 than 8. I mean, it's just more concrete or asphalt.
It's like Harbor Heights, we're gonna have to do some research for you on that one because the grade change out there too, what we can put in.
I don't know why. I mean, this is kind of off the wall comment, but the bigger it gets, the bigger it's be a 12-court complex. It becomes an operation.
Mhm.
You know, if it's a 4-court, hey, it's open play like any tennis courts or anything else. 8-court, I think that's a good mix of schedule. 12 courts or beyond to me becomes not having details, but really becomes more an operation where you need almost a manager for that operation or somebody assigned to it. So anyway, that may not be true. It may just be 4 courts, and that's fine. More for open play. Just seems to me that the bigger it gets, the more it becomes.
So I'm hearing a lot of different things. Keep in mind that this is a design phase. So what we could do is put a range and ask them to, hey, design us a good cost estimate for what would it be to, how much is it going to be to build, 8 courts versus 12 courts. And, visible. So we could do that
wise.
Do we still have the design for Neil? I think I had one for a while, I remember.
It wasn't really a
Was
design
drawing.
so much as just the layout. Okay, so we have a little bit of background just about Oak Harbor, and then just about our discussion around this. When pickleball was created, Bainbridge Island, state sport, largest growing sports in the country. Consistent feedback over the last 10 years, prioritize building more pickleball courts. Several sites have been considered. We're looking at Fort Midget Park for installation of first installation site 4 and 8. We'll make this range. Have looking at what is maybe a little information gathering on what is an appropriate size facility for our community. Can be part of the planning process with this. So the firm to provide site evaluation, design, engineering services, and engineering cost estimates and construction drawings and plans to furnish and construct the courts. Cost analysis to include all preps, finished site preparation, excavation, all grading, court laying, drainage, court surface texture and fencing, site accessories, amenities as per specifications on RFP. Exhibit A, scope of services. So from there, you can kind of just browse through a lot of that as far as like how we evaluate the proposals, any comments you might have on that, weigh those. I don't have a schedule yet in here. I really need to talk to a couple contractors to figure out like how long it actually takes to do a design like that. I've done tennis courts. I've not done pickleball courts yet though.
Check it off the list, Frank.
Okay, so
Going with the time.
go down to scope of services is where I'd like to get a lot of your guys' feedback. So design and provide engineering estimates and construction documents for the build out of however many courts. We can do a range, like I said, with recommendations and cost estimates for surfacing. That's definitely something we want to look at. Provide geotech analysis and site prep planning. Courts have to have leveling base courses needed. One layer of 15 mil poly sheeting vapor retarder, 5-inch thick, post tension concrete slab, or a 4-inch crusher run with 2 inches of fine topping asphalt. So your concrete is usually a better value for like the life expectancy to the cost, but asphalt is cheaper upfront cost. It just has more maintenance costs over time. You go either way. I've heard some people like the softer feel of the asphalt. A lot of people like the nicer look and play of the concrete. So we can, I don't know, we'll have them give us some recommendations on what kind of surface. RSS color surface and lines, 10-foot tall black vinyl coated fence with 9-gauge wire, 3-inch terminal posts, 2.5-inch line posts. Sound reducing fabric overlay. This is something that I'm seeing a lot of on the discussion boards around parks and recreation facilities. Is pickleball apparently is a very loud sport. I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Neighbors do.
We've always done it in like inside our facilities or at tennis courts next to recreation centers. But a lot of communities have these courts just in parks, and a lot of the parks are near residential. And apparently, the balls are quite loud, especially in the evening time. So some
Gotta get the constant too.
topic, yeah.
In the last city I was at, we built one on a waterfront park, and we put up a lot of money on fabric because it's for 10 hours a day. And
So something to consider. There's actually cities that are pulling out their courts because they've had so many complaints about noise and being a noise nuisance. So that's interesting. All right, and let's see. So perimeter fencing with hardware and all that stuff. Drinking fountains with engineered water connections, location of existing utilities, and then shared cabanas between the courts. So this is the court layout we'd like. Court should be oriented north and south. Dimensions 20 by 44, playing area 30 by 60. The net should be 36 inches at the sidelines. I'm including in here design and drawings for lighting. That's going to raise the cost substantially. I don't know whether we put in lighting or not. That's something I'd love to have your
I don't see any.
comments on.
During, it's daylight here forever when the weather's decent. Nobody's gonna want to play at night.
At some point, I don't think it would hurt to put the concrete footings in and run the electrical over there at the same time and just leave it there as an option, just like it would be to do a cover. But have them there and not have them part of maybe the initial project and see how it goes and see what neighborhood feedback is and all that and see if the growth trends continue.
Because once you put it in, you can't go back and do that.
If we stub out the electrical over there and we have the footing, enough concrete on there in order to do the footings for the light structure and or cover it, it makes sense. You're already pouring the concrete. The worst thing that can happen is you don't use it and you've not increased your costs a whole lot by running electrical out. And
So one of the things I did run into when we were talking about redoing the other courts over here is when you jump up in the number of courts in one place, you're gonna have to deal with groundwater too. So keep that a little bit in consideration too, with the cost.
I don't know if you want security lighting opposed to playable lighting. I don't know.
gives you a place to put more cameras though.
Yeah, the other problem we're gonna have with it is if we have to decide on our flooring is vandalism or because we have that some now with the tennis courts where they go out there on 4th of July and they'll light off fireworks and burn holes in it. So we want to build it out of something that doesn't get vandalized easy.
Well, I think walking the gate at night to it as well would be helpful.
Yeah.
Do you mention anywhere in here expansion potential, the design? In other words, if we say 8 courts, identify expansion
We could word it that way. I mean, if we're going to ask them for a range, then that's kind of already built in.
Yeah.
Right.
So maybe they don't need to design it all out, but that they allow, footprint
or additional build in future phases.
The other thing is, are we tying them into that specific location? Because you mentioned noise. That doesn't, I went out there to take a look. It does seem to be a nice open space, but it gets pretty close to the housing.
And we do have some issues with some of those neighbors now.
Are we,
On the other hand, where the basketball and volleyball courts are, be pretty safe.
that's
But it's not as big a space.
So, that's what came out of our conversations here. I think you guys mostly were just interested in Fort Nugent Park. As far as like specifically where in the park,
So we're not tying our hands.
no, you limit any like additional expansion. Let's
Yeah.
take out the basketball courts. In the location you're talking. We'd have to remove the.
Well, you'd have to remove the basketball and the accommodation.
I thought we were considering that side of the park in order to accommodate the new entranceway and then potential parking expansion over on that side, and then putting it over there also. I thought there was some concern, which is why we moved away from some, was the noise. And putting it over there, we do have sort of a green barrier on either side of the court then, which will help absorb some of the sound in addition to the sound absorbing fabric.
Well, something that the firm could look at. It's not called out here on the RFP. It's just the location of Fort Nugent Park. Is
With the seed sculpture.
that what it is? Is it a city?
Jury's still out. Oh yeah, 20 years later.
So give me your comments on that. We can pull out the lighting or whatever you guys think on that. Share cabana. So this would be in between the courts. Just kind of a
That's nice.
Feature.
That's a great picture.
yeah. So you have some shade covered and seating, like drinking fountains or whatever next to those. 8 foot tall. So that's diagram. Work to be done through there. Specifications established by the USA Pickleball Association. Okay, so I'll send that out to you guys. I'll give you 2 weeks to give me your comments, edits. Any questions you have, like, well, should we consider this? Hey, we really don't want this, or any thoughts at all you have around it. And then we'll pull all those in with the committee, just finalize that, and we'll share it with you guys one more time as a board before we put it out. And then we'll bring it back to council for approval. Not too worried about the cost. You're covered in the money that we are allocated.
The design cost.
The design costs.
The other costs are really gonna.
We're working on installation.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all I have for you.
Okay, let's move on to the director report.
So first off, we have the Art Commission is going to be meeting to discuss the Gate of Inspiration tomorrow. That's Tuesday at the trailhead off of Scenic Heights at 1 p.m. And they've asked for a couple of representatives from the park board to go out and look at and just have that discussion with them. So I'm asking for 2 volunteers. I can't have more than that.
Sorry, what was that for?
It's for discussion around the art piece called Gate of Inspiration. And they're probably going to have discussion around art placement at Wood German Park in general as well.
Where are they meeting all the way up to that trail?
Yeah, the trailhead off of Scenic Heights.
So all the way at the top where they were,
Yeah.
are we talking about it at deck 20 or all the way down at the bottom where the trail starts?
I don't know.
It's on Scenic Heights. It's not
Scenic
up
Park.
the hill.
Yeah.
Where JR was talking about.
Where the parking lot is.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
So like 4 spaces there.
Gotcha.
I can do that.
Tom and Kate, you guys good with that?
What was the time again?
We'll send you a meeting. It'll be 1 p.m. The Gary Oak Society has asked if we can move forward with installation of the stone sign. You might notice over at Smith Park, there's 2 large stone pillars. We have funding to be able to cover that. I've asked engineering to provide one of their staff to do some structural engineering for that. Would oh sorry.
The pickleball's still up there. Just for the recording, it'll look better.
What's that?
You need a motion for that?
I don't have, I have conceptual drawings, but I don't really have like much more than that. Just mostly want to get your guys' thought. Yeah, if you want to pass a motion of yes, let's go and use funding to install that. Great. I wish I had like more to show you guys.
I do have some pictures of the stones I can forward to you, but
I'd make a motion to go ahead and proceed with installing the stone signs.
Okay. We'll go for that. You guys have a clear enough idea of the vision of that. So basically those would be installed on the west side of the park, where the trail is. And there's two of them. We'll probably put Smith Park and have like the dates.
At the corner pointing under some shop.
Great. For your information, this is something that got brought up with a meeting with DNR last week. We're going to meet with the Gary Oak Society and a couple of our stakeholders. There is a parasite. It's the Mediterranean oak borer. It's a very small version of a kind of an ambrosia beetle, and it specifically attacks oak trees. The beetle, and I have a information sheet I'll send out to you guys because we're going to have some meetings about this, but it tunnels thin little bark lines. Actually, I can show on screen. Show you what I'm looking at. And the beetle has a fungus that it does along with that. There you go. Okay, so yeah, there's a picture of the beetle, and they carry around a fungus as they bore in these little lines. You can see that's kind of what it looks like, and it's the fungus that ends up destroying the tree. This is something that's been in California. It's moved into Oregon, and it's going to end up here. We do know that Gary Oaks are very susceptible to this as well. And since we have a large population of it, we could have a very large outbreak and lose those species. So DNR is watching this very closely. I'll send out this information sheet to you guys just so you can kind of get up to date on it. And then we'll probably pull you in on a virtual meeting with DNR and Gary Oak Society. Is there, what, if anything, can we do in preparation for this? How do we mitigate it? Is there a treatment plan for it? It's fairly new. In fact, this information sheet from last year is already out of date. They already have information about infecting the oak species. The disease is very similar to like a Dutch elm disease. You could just wipe out your whole inventory in the community if it gets bad enough. So something to just be aware of, and more conversation information about coming. Liz is back for one day before she heads back out, and so I'm just going to turn it over to Liz real quick for just an update on what's happening on the recreation front. We had City Council approve the staffing support for the new recreation division, transition from our senior services division.
We have about 15 minutes left, just so.
We'll be right on top of it.
Okay.
You can't quite hear Liz, though. Hold on a second, Liz.
We can do the volume. We'll bring the volume up. Keep on
No.
testing.
What's up?
It's up.
We can't hear you, Liz.
It doesn't look like she's speaking.
Yeah, she is.
We can hear Sabrina, so we know our sound's good on our end.
Yeah.
No mics or the new recreation.
Doesn't look like you have a mic. She's in
Okay, I'm changing the microphone I'm using. Does this work?
That one.
I changed the microphone. It was on the default, and obviously that wasn't working. Okay, great. Well, hello everybody. I planned to be there in person, but we had some unforeseen staff outages this morning, which with a little team means I'm holding down the fort and happy to be doing that. But I know many of you from working with me in my role as the Senior Services Administrator, and now I'm very excited to be working as the Recreation Manager. So yes, my position has been reclassified, and we're looking forward to growing the Recreation Division and bringing on more services for our community. So we already have a very healthy set of recreational programs for our older adults. And I'm looking forward to being able to continue to grow those alongside offering programs for other ages. And my voice is a little shot. I was out last week helping run a youth camp for about 60 youth, and there was a lot of fun yelling, a lot of fun encouraging yelling, but I'm suffering the side effects of that. So anyways, a couple of things I just wanted to share with you were, well, first off, I'm not sure, have you all seen the list of programs to come? Okay, good, great. So some of those first ones we're going to start with are the ones that will be easy to implement utilizing our space here at the center when the space isn't already being used for our senior programs or older adult programming. So there is a lot of time in the late afternoon and evenings that we're looking forward to filling those times with additional programs. And what's great is we already have a network of instructors who teach classes here for older adults who are very interested and excited to be teaching for youth and for teens. So some of those that we'll start with are some art classes, intro to watercolors and pastels, art mediums. We also have some fantastic people excited to teach them the art of cookie decorating, the art of cake decorating, those types of workshops. So those are the ones we're going to kind of we can start getting now. It doesn't take too much staff time to implement those, as well as we're hoping to this winter utilize our indoor space for some indoor tot programming, some tot soccer, basketball, volleyball. So those are those real little, those 3 to 5 year olds. Get them somewhere indoors when it's raining to burn off some of that energy. So those are the kind of first recreational programming we're looking to implement. And we'll be able to implement more with the recruitment and hiring of our recreation coordinator, which will be the next step staffing wise for the recreation division. And so, you know, we foresee that going out for recruitment within, you know, recruiting and having someone this fall or winter. So we're working through that right now. Some other things that we've been working on, and I'm sure Brian's already shared with you, but we're excited that we got our RCO outdoor learning grant in for the Marina Conservation Outdoor STEAM program. Is that something that you've all heard about already? Okay, yeah, I think I've seen nods. Yes, okay. So if that's funding that we receive, that's going to be a really awesome start of youth programming, recreational programming for our division. And we've also started our food truck in the park program. So it's something that we're working on, getting a reoccurring food truck in the park day to happen in the summer months in Windjammer Park. And so we have started to, you know, it's quite a process. This is the first time, at least in my knowledge, that the city has done something like this. So there was definitely a team effort in getting all the players to the table, from, you know, our public works and our planning department and fire, ensuring that our application that we were putting out to vendors was sufficient to cover all of the requirements. So we've got the application out to the public and to vendors. We aligned it this year. You know, I did some outreach to vendors prior to putting it out, asking what days people would be interested in or available to be a food vendor in the park. And they came back with they were wanting to see weekdays because, you know, they've got big events on the weekend, but would love to have a home base once a week during the week. And that happened to align with the Oak Harbor Music Festival's summer concert series in the park on Wednesdays. So reached out to them. They were amenable to us having a food truck in the park happening at the same time. So anyways, it's been quite a process working through with interested vendors who don't necessarily meet the requirements or looking to see how we can help them meet requirements. So we were able to get our first food truck in the park vendor for last Wednesday. And I was out, so I missed it. So I'll have to get the feedback of how that went. But our goal is to just continue to get more vendors. This is kind of just barely, we're starting late in the game this year, but we're doing what we can to get the word out there and really testing the waters. That's kind of a period that we can get feedback from vendors to see what would be better from them and from the community so that we can build this program to be ongoing and sustainable in the future and in future summers. So we look forward to the growth of that. And so far that's the updates I have for you today. Happy to take any questions, but look forward to getting to work with you as our Parks and Recreation Board and getting your input and assistance in our process.
Thanks, Liz.
So exciting.
Yeah, and you're gonna see quite a bit from Liz in several different areas, though, besides senior services, which will continue to run fitness and wellness, recreational programming, community special events, and community programs like enrichment type programming, as well as arts programming. So she'll have a very full plate, and we hope that this is a good positive step for the city and the comprehensive recreational offerings, and also to provide opportunities for sustainable and revenue generating areas for some of our more subsidized type areas. Love to get into things like therapeutic recreation for adaptive services and programs as well, with support of some of that. So exciting things coming, and the city is making some great steps. We really appreciate Blaine's support through all this, and council has just been super supportive of the new department, and we're trying to move forward as fast as we can with everything that they've asked us to do. And we have an incredible staff, several of them here, and they participate actively with these boards and commissions, and they appreciate your guys' support and feedback as well. So
I don't think we can understate how wonderful this is. This is just such a long time coming. And Liz is amazing. And Brian, I just want to commend you on how much has happened in this very short tenure of yours. It's just, I'm really thrilled. I'm sitting here going, amazing.
Well, I couldn't do it without the great staff that we have. We have some amazing people in our department. I love their energy, and they're excited for some of the changes and growth we're doing. We have a new park supervisor position that's been posted, so we're looking to hire that and continue to grow and kind of transition the structure of parks as well. Hopefully in support of all the great recreational things we're going to be doing. So good things happening. 3 last quick things for you, and then we'll wrap up. We have submitted the Smith Park historical designation application. That letter was approved by council, and Kyle Renninger has sent that into the state. So we'll give you an update on that when we hear back. I'm going to be meeting with some of our city arborists and our streets division this week, just to talk about the city Christmas tree. The current one down there on Pioneer Way is in sad condition. I know Margaret would really like to keep that, but I think we need to have some discussions on what's a new opportunity to really not only put in a great Christmas tree, but do some programming and some activation around that, make it kind of a community event to light it up and do some fun things and stuff I've done before that we'll talk more about. Some fun ideas around that. And the last one is last week I was interviewed by the Washington State Recreation and Conservation Office for their grants board, and have been selected to sit on that. I'll have to recuse myself when we do reviews of grants that we submitted, but I think it'll be a good opportunity for the city to have a better relationship with RCO, and also give us a little more insight into how to put together successful applications, and hopefully it'll just create a lot of opportunities to help support all the things that we're trying to get done that we need some alternative funding for. So
I have a fourth item. The county did give us funding to purchase 3 parcels in Friend Marsh, some remnant parcels there. So got to get a willing buyer and got to get it finalized. And so, but we did over $500,000. Yeah, we've got funding to do that. So still a lot of work to go, but that's one of the first things is getting that grant approval.
Okay, member comments?
I have a quick question. The specific location for the Angel,
Yes.
I noticed the sign, which is on the water side of the path. Is that going to be the location? I know when we had talked as a board, it was going to be on the inside of the path.
Yeah.
It's going to be on the inside.
Yeah, we had to keep it 50 feet from the.
Yeah, I was surprised to see the sign.
Judy and I just put it there for best visibility
Okay.
and to keep cars from running it over.
Yeah, and there's gonna be a little bit of reconfiguring of that
Yeah,
space as well.
Any other comments? Okay, determination of future agenda item.
Follow.
I think we'll be following up on a lot of these, and then
I would like to start talking about the damage part.
I was just gonna.
We do need to schedule some meetings with the committees.
Yeah.
So let's try. I'm going to be out the last week in August, but let's try and get at least one meeting with maybe each of the committees before the next one, and then I will probably inform a little bit of what our agenda items are going to be. So if you want to push the agenda discussion a little bit, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll try and.
Yeah, I think we need to keep those ones rolling in,
Yeah.
you know, and get this traction on this. We need
Yeah.
to the next thing.
I'll get
It's the
those
big
scheduled and
stones.
invite sent out this week.
Anything else? And adjourn the meeting then?
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks, Gary.
Get it in time.